And what is up, everybody? Happy Tuesday. Welcome to Talking Ball. Y'all, we're going to preview week 6 of the LHSAA football season. I am Cass Hargis. That's Jason Dewey, Lance Lacoste, and joining us tonight, making us look a whole lot better than what we really are, Mike McMillan, the owner, editor, creator of Northshore Prep Report. He does a great job covering all the teams on the North Shore. So we figured we have him on. Welcome aboard the show, Mike. We're fired up to have you, dude.
Yeah, man, I appreciate you guys having me. I feel like I'm lost in headphone land here, and I don't have headphones. But,
there you go. That's fine. You provide the pretty face.
With the coverage you do out there, man, like I said, I didn't get to tell you, but it's incredible, the extensive amount of coverage that you guys do. And I'm an avid follower, and I love y'all work.
Thank you, Jason. I appreciate it. You know, when I moved up here to the North Shore about 15 years ago, and just following as a fan, right? It was kind of hard sometimes to find some information, and I just decided on a whim in the spring to kind of start this thing for baseball, and it's taken off. But honestly, I've gotten such a good reception from coaches and stuff that they make it easy for me. You know, I get stats fed, and I get to, fortunately, I know a lot of the players, so I get to talk to them on a regular basis and form those relationships. And kind of fills that coaching itch for me a little bit, you know.
Yeah, no doubt. It's awesome to see obviously from personal experience with you, but what you do for it helps the programs, but it also helps the kids and all the stuff you do. So with that, let's get right into it. I know we've got a few big ones on the North Shore. None maybe bigger than Franklinton at Lakeshore. This is two teams. Last year they played twice. Franklinton won both games. They won the regular season 35-28. They met again in the quarterfinals. Franklinton won 41-40. Lakeshore suffered a tough loss last week to Salmon, one that we talked on Sunday we really didn't see coming. Franklinton 3-2 on the year. They're coming in. They lost to Jules Sumner last week. They also have a loss to Covington earlier in the season, but this is two teams that we expect to play deep into the playoffs. Their district opener Friday night at Lakeshore. Yeah,
for me, Cass, it's kind of round 3 for those guys. Like regular season game last year, and then the huge playoff game last year, which could have went either way. And then I would have been surprised if both teams came into this game 5-0. Then again, I'm not surprised by the records either. Franklinton's losses, they fail on a 2-point conversion kind of as time expires against a really good Covington team. And then they lose in overtime to Sumner, who is ranked number 1 in 3A and, has a really good chance to make a run. So I'm excited about that one. It's kind of some contrasting styles between Franklinton's kind of spread offense and having some athletes on the outside. And Lakeshore does a phenomenal job in the trenches. Like they win. They don't lose in the trenches. We talk all the time about, on 3rd and 1, they're going to run belly. They're going to get 3 yards. Like it doesn't matter what you do. Just give it up and get ready for first down again. And I'll say this, there's some really good coaches on the North Shore, and this might be 2 of the more fiery coaches there are. Like they are, we'll call it passionate, but they are wildly successful in their passion. But you can tell it translates to their kids and their programs, right? Like both of those guys' mentality, the boys play like it. Like I don't know if I would have predicted Brent to have, Coach Indes to have the success he has at Lakeshore kind of quickly building that program. But when Salt went to Franklinton, I was like, oh my, that's dangerous for everybody, because his personality and that group of kids and their culture up there, it's a marriage made in heaven. It's great. So, I got to talk to him a good bit in the summer, and, I asked him, hey, you've had some stops. He's brought multiple teams to the Dome. What's the plan? He said, I'm going to die at Franklinton. so
that sounds about right.
Yeah. Yeah. So he's got a good thing going. They have a great administration over there that supports him, and, same at Lakeshore. I'm excited about the matchup. I think, Jacob Crane hurt his thumb a little bit last week. He made contact with a helmet on a throw, but seems to be okay. We'll see what happens game time. He's got some really good weapons on the outside. Obviously, Demikes McClain and Jaden Burkhalter are two of the best receivers around this area for maybe the state. They've gotten some success in the run game, which last year a lot of people don't remember, but they had a running back that was phenomenal. And it kind of made that offense go. So they've got a young man, Ricardo Burris, who's kind of taking over that. He's a little bit more shifty, but he can hit a home run ball. And then just this past week, they got their tight end involved again, and now he caught two touchdowns last week. So it's a really hard offense to defend. Even if Jacob's 70%, I'm taking him over most people anyway, because he's so smart. He really is a coach on the field. And then, to turn that over to Lakeshore, Brody Loudermilk, who was a running back that they kind of moved to quarterback, he's been sensational, running the ball, and he's able to throw it, when he needs to. He's bigger than I thought. He's quicker than I thought. He's stronger than I thought. Seeing him up close and personal. But I think they're going to have some injuries and some guys out. But look, I think Coach Indes does such a good job. It's just next man up. Like, they run what they run. There's a reason that they'll have 4 or 5 guys leading the team in rushing week to week. Like, they're just a great program. They play great, sound defense. It's a phenomenal matchup that we're really excited about.
Yeah, when you look at this one too, it seems like they're both evenly matched on both sides of the ball, right? Franklinton comes in at 29 points a game on offense, 19 points defensively. Lakeshore only yielding 19 points defensively and scoring 31 points as well. So I'm excited to see it. Burkhalter, I know, has been a really fun player to watch as a junior. The other receiver as well, Demikes McClain. I've heard a lot about him. I haven't gotten to watch a full Franklinton game yet, but it's gonna be interesting to see. I know Lakeshore took a few bumps and bruises last week, so we'll see how much of an impact that has on this game. But especially as you mentioned, like round 3, I think this is gonna be a fascinating one to watch, and one that people all over the state are gonna be paying attention to, not just people out here.
Yeah, it's a 4A battle, right? I mean, both those teams are ranked in 4A for good reason. They're both going to make runs in the playoffs, and if you can make it to Mandeville on Friday night, you'll get your money's worth. That's for sure.
I was just going to add. I mean, you had that point in the year where depth has become such an issue, and the team with more depth tends to win these type of matchups where it just feels like who's healthier, right? And so, I mean, you already said a lot about both of these coaches. We love Coach Salt. He'll be on this podcast at some point.
Friend of the program, Coach Salt.
Oh yeah, we love Salt. But yeah, Coach Indes, Coach Salt. These guys, they're going to figure out a way to be prepared and overcome some of these challenges that they have in their locker room right now with some of the injuries. But I think this was a matchup that we had circled early on, and this matchup is only even more interesting now with them coming off of 2 losses that I don't think I would have picked, these 2 losses that these teams had last week, and now we're hearing that there's some injuries, so it just makes it that much more interesting of a matchup.
Yeah, it's almost like the losses make the game more important than if they're both coming in 5-0, or at least more interesting, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be really weird to see Franklinton at 3-3. This wouldn't have been expected.
Yeah.
Well, look, I think of it kind of like Cecilia last year, right? Cecilia gets to the playoffs and they're like an 18 seed. It's like nobody wants to play Cecilia as an 18 seed, and sure enough, they go win a state championship, right? It's wild, but I think it speaks to both coaches that it's still a big game, and I think the important thing is every team right now is saying, "Hey, we're 0-0 in district." Our goal 1, right, is always to win district. And so everything's ahead of everybody. Everything that happened to this point is, I always say it's PowerPoint season until it's district time, and then you don't have control of it anymore.
Yeah, that's true. And we'll go to another game in Covington that maybe coming into the year you may have circled and just to keep an eye on. I know St. Paul's is hosting Hammond. St. Paul's a football program that, for much of the time under Coach Sears, they've run the district. And I know the district has changed the last year, but they've run the district, and it's almost like they just roll through and, what happens in the playoffs. But Hammond, I think, kind of sneaking up on some people. They've done a really good job quietly the last 2 years. They come into this week's game, they're 4-1. They lost in week 1 to Denham Springs and rolled off 4 straight. Last week really caught our attention where they go beat Slidell 35-28. That one kind of jumped out of the page at us. But if you're St. Paul's, you're 3-2. You played a difficult schedule, as they always do up to this point. I feel like you almost have to win this game to kind of announce yourself that, hey, the district still runs through us. That's going to be an interesting one in Covington.
Yeah, I mean, for St. Paul's, your two losses are, to Brother Martin, which, they lost that game to a wide receiver that they couldn't do much about, and nobody else can, right? And then, other than Rummel, maybe we'll talk about that later.
Yep.
And then they lose to U High. I think what's important to remember is Hammond was in the same spot last year.
Mm-hmm.
They were either 4-1 or 5-1, and then they had a 3-game setup with St. Paul's, Mandeville, Covington, and none of those games were close. So talking to Coach Buckles in August, and talking to those kids, a lot of the focus was knowing who they are and doing things the right way all the time. So they've done a really good job of putting themselves right back in the same spot. Their quarterback, Taryn Jones, he's an athlete who can sling it. Their running back, Zaylen Bennett, you see him in the stat stuff all the time. He's got some offers. I think he's offered from Southern and Tuskegee. There's some more stuff coming. He's 6 foot, 200 pounds and can run. He ran for 150 yards last week against Slidell. He's creeping up there. The biggest difference for them right now is, if you haven't heard of Donut, we call him Donut. His name's Reginald Monroe. He's got 4 return touchdowns on the year already, and he had 2 called back. But this past week against Slidell, they found some ways to get him some ball in space, and he caught another two touchdowns. He's 5'7", 160 pounds. He reminds me a lot of a DeMarco Hutchinson back in the day at Destrehan, kind of a smaller guy that can make plays. But he's fantastic. And then on defense, they've got guys. Like they have, I call them bus guys. Like when they get off the bus in the cutoff shirt and helmets on, it looks different. And they play it, Alante Beauchamp, if you guys haven't heard of him, he's 6'2", 220. He plays on the edge. He's got 12 and a half sacks already. You can't run at him because he's big, and when you run away from him, he chases people down. But their defense as a whole, Coach Buckles does a really good job. For St. Paul's, it's intriguing how their year has gone. Cody Corrales, every time he touches the ball, is dynamic. But it's almost like you can't give him the ball 35 times a game. So their junior quarterback, Brady Pearson, I think he's improving week to week. Kenny Sears Jr., their offensive coordinator, he's done a really good job of spreading the ball around. They haven't really gotten the ball to Brennan Villa as much as I thought they maybe would. And look, probably not without trying, but he's a true deep threat. They have done a really good job of incorporating some other guys, and Brady keeps improving and improving. But they run a very complex offense. They've got a great offensive line, some really big kids. They've got a sophomore that is going to be one of the top players in the state, if not the nation, on the line. And then defensively, St. Paul's is like the all-name team. Like everybody that's there, from years past. Like they've got 2 young corners that both have Division I offers that are sophomores. Everybody else is older, and they've done it already. So now it's district play, and like you said, it's St. Paul's kind of owns the district until somebody can knock them off.
Yep.
Yeah. Cass, I was going to mainly point out that Hammond's on the road, so we should get to see the same uniform combination. Helmet, XFL helmet, the white on gray pant. I thought it was a beautiful look, so I think that's going to be a nice look for Hammond. I'm excited about that. But no, I think kind of like you alluded to there, St. Paul's, it almost feels like, they paid a price early, playing against unbelievable competition. I mean, you mentioned a couple of them, but it goes even further back to they scrimmage Curtis, they Jamboree, I think Rummel, they play Brother Martin, like everybody they play. And so that's why they're 3-2. And it feels like this is the time of year that stuff pays off when they get to Hammond, a tough district opponent, but Hammond probably hasn't seen the same hasn't been through the same battles that St. Paul's has been through, and so and I was glad you mentioned Brennan Villa. He's a good one that I agree. Great speed guy. He was actually driving from Covington all the way down by us in Elmwood to work with my receivers coach. And so I know his dad and uncle pretty well. So I'm hoping to see some bigger stats out of Brennan. But, yeah, he's a guy that can really get up and down the field and stretch the defense for him.
Yeah, he's a great story, too. Did he tear it? It was an ACL or meniscus?
Yep.
He was younger. And, I mean, I know he's a heck of a ball player. I mean, that whole St. Paul's team is big, physical. Dylan Post, of course, you were alluding to him earlier, is a guy who plays all over the field, all-state caliber player, really impressive. And Beauchamp is a guy for Hammond who you mentioned, who I've been high on him since the summer. I kind of dug into this film and was really impressed with just how physical he can be. And the Donut's the guy that you guys kind of put me on to, man. I started turning on his tape, and just an excellent return, man. I think to everybody's point, scheduling early on is something we've alluded to a lot. Pre-district scheduling, who you play, how you play them, and how you go. My question is, how much of a threat do we seriously take Slidell to be? Because I think they have one of, if not, it's top 10 explosive offenses in the state. Yep. They have so many guys that can catch the football, throw the football, run the football, and this Hammond defense held them to 28 points. So that's a pretty impressive feat. I'm interested to see this defense of Hammond go against the St. Paul's offense because of Cody Corrales, as you guys mentioned. He is such a dynamic playmaker. Because of Villa, he is a really nice deep threat. But I'm really interested to see this Hammond defense taking on the St. Paul's offense, and this could be a real big statement for Hammond if they come out and get a win in this game.
Yeah, and I would say if you're Coach Buckles, like, it's not time for them to say, "Hey, we played St. Paul's close," right? Like, I don't think that's what they're looking for. I think they're going in looking to win. And St. Paul's has had some issues turning the ball over a little bit, and I know that's something that Coach Sears wants to clean up. And I even asked Coach Sears before week 1, like, "Hey, Curtis and Rummel, like, I mean, is that what you want to do?" And he's like, he was like, absolutely. Well, because when you're scrimmaging or jamboree, you don't game plan, right? You're not going over film. You're not designing offenses or defenses based on what they're doing. You're just playing, right? And I saw some highlights from the John Curtis scrimmage, and they were running like sprint veer counters, right? And it's like, come on, man, it's a scrimmage. Yeah. I can't. What are you doing, right? But they tore St. Paul's up a little bit. But he said something that I still think of to this day. And he was like, "Mike, we do that because we want to know where our weaknesses are. And those guys expose us. And so as we go through the season, we get to fix those things." And you see it. Like, I think you're right. Like Lance said, it's not just the first 5 games from scrimmage week, right? And in years past, it might have been a week of a break, right, with Hammond, but that's not the case anymore. And we'll see what happens, but I'm excited about it. It's a big one for both teams for sure.
Yeah, and to your point too, Mike, going back to last year, Hammond's schedule set up the exact same way as it did last year. They lost to Denham in week 1, won 4 in a row, played St. Paul's and lost 45-13, and then it kind of, the wheels kind of fell off. After that. So it'll be very interesting to see if they can kind of get that fixed. And that's a program at Hammond. They've always had talent. It's a proud program. The people in that city are very proud, and that community are proud to be a tour. So it's good to see them, what Coach Buckles has done with the program, and this would kind of be the signature win, maybe of his time, if they could find a way to get it done this week. Also in Covington, Mandeville goes to Covington. Mandeville comes in at 3-2. Covington is 4-1. These two teams played last year. Obviously, Mandeville won 35-33. Mandeville kind of had an up and down year. They lose their quarterback for a while in week 1. Crew Kalora comes in as a freshman. He's been their starting quarterback ever since. He got his first start against Madison Prep, a game in which they were competitive but lost. And they've alternated wins and losses throughout. Covington seemed to be rolling, and then kind of maybe almost inexplicably loses to Northshore, something that, I think maybe the upset of the year, at least up to this point on the Northshore. But I think Covington, this was kind of their year. They were kind of pointed to this year as this was going to be the year that they take that next step. Mandeville seems to kind of have solidified some stuff. Crew Kalora has gotten better each time out. So interesting to see how, I know that this atmosphere is going to be really good in Covington. These two teams always play really tight, close games. So it'll be a fun one out in Covington Friday night.
Yeah, and that's, we talk about coaches and talking to Coach Tucker at Chalmette, he said, because I asked, like, hey, You're on the North Shore now, right? You realize that, right? Chalmette's not in Chalmette anymore. It's on the North Shore because you're in the
Chalmette will always be Chalmette.
You're in the
Chalmette
North
will
Shore
always be
district, right?
Chalmette.
We are not
look,
on. Yeah, we're definitely on the North Shore.
Look, I'm going to talk about Chalmette tonight. I can promise you that because I'm infatuated with those kids. But he said something that resonates, and he's like, Mike, I'll be honest with you, head to toe, coach to coach, I don't know that there's better, right? Just men in programs. And I'll say this, Coach Salter and Coach Jones, they're two of the best coaches around. Like they run really good programs. They're very organized. They're very structured. You know what you're going to get. They do what they do. They have high expectations. They live up to them most of the time. I think it's a fascinating matchup. I think on paper, people would look and say, hey, Covington's going to win this game. I haven't talked to Coach Salter this week, but if I had to guess, he's probably a little frustrated offensively with who they are, right? They've gone week to week, and it's either, Fussell has a huge game in the air or a huge game on the ground. I'll say this, Fontainebleau is a pretty good football team. They're much improved. They're doing a much better job over there. That was a nothing game at halftime. So Covington wins that game 28-7 last week. And then to touch on North Shore ran against Covington. Remember the name Ramon Williams. I'm not sure. He's a senior. He's running the ball all over everybody right now. He ran for another 170 last week against Mandeville. He ran for 170 against Covington. And to go back, they had Franklinton on the ropes they had Lakeshore on the ropes in week 2. And Coach Sanders over at North Shore, he admitted he kind of freaked out a little bit and panicked that they should have given Ramon the ball more in the second half. He only had 4 carries. But since then, they're going to be in every game. That's a good football team, and they play well on defense. I think what Mandeville has done last week is encouraging because Crew Calura didn't run the ball as much last week. They have a couple sophomore running backs, Estep and Lejeune, Jack Lejeune, who ran the ball really well to help Jax O'Quinn. I think they're best when they have multiple guys running the ball. Jax O'Quinn can't run the ball 25 times a game like Nate Shepard, right? So they're finding other ways. But to watch Crew Calura as a freshman, sit in the pocket, make some reads and some of the throws he made, I've known him for a long time, kind of saw it coming. But I didn't think he would play this early. And then I didn't think he could be as good as he is. I mean, he's playing 5A football, right?
Yeah.
And, the golden rule in 5A is if every sophomore I put on the field, I can count it as a loss in the season. So I don't know what the rule is as a freshman quarterback in 5A, but it doesn't matter, right? So they're going to take their lumps, but Jake Giacchetti on the outside at receivers really well. Mandeville's always pretty sound on defense, but they've given up a lot of yards this year, and it's a little bit unusual for them. I've been a little bit surprised that the Henry kid hasn't seen the ball a little bit more on the offensive side to give him some more explosion on the outside, but kind of the same as Covington. Covington's defense, if you see their stats, they're 3 linebackers. I don't know that there's a better 3 linebacker combination around. Now, Chalmette has 2 that are really good. One's heading to South Alabama, and the other one is sensational. But they've got, I think, 6 interceptions on the year. 3 of them are by defensive linemen. They've played really good ball. Some of those big guys. I have to give Max Guy a shout out. He always likes when I give him a shout out. But he's got he leads the team with 2 interceptions this year as a defensive lineman.
That's awesome.
Is big for him. So I think the matchup is probably the most intriguing game this week because I really don't I'm high on Covington. Like you guys see, they're number 1 in my rankings. All but last week they've been number 1 the entire season. I just don't know who they are yet. Are they a team that's going to lean on Jacob Pompa and run the ball really well and do some RPO stuff? They've got to get the ball into Juwan Brock's hands. He's a Texas State commit. He had 4 catches, touchdown last week. He's a big play waiting to happen. But they've got 2 or 3 other guys that can play. So of all the games, there's some big ones. This is the one I can't pinpoint. If somebody said, hey, get your crystal ball out, I would say I have no idea what's going to happen.
Yeah.
This feels like a game that Covington has to win. You're at home. I think the talent is pretty clear that Covington's the more talented bunch. With that said, like you just mentioned, it's like we don't really know this Covington team is yet. I remember watching them around week 2 and thinking, man, this is a really good football team. And I didn't watch their loss, but their loss stuck out to me. Like, how did they lose that one? You know, so I watched the kid Matthew Fussell. I hope I'm saying that right, Fussell.
Yeah, that's right.
But beautiful left-handed quarterback. I mean, man, the ball spins off his hand effortlessly. And so, but I also look at his stats. It looks like he's only thrown just over 500 yards. I know he's had some big games, so he must have had some bad games too, right? And so it's like, where does this Covington team fall? And I think you find out a lot this Friday night, a game that it feels like they should and need to win, but these rivalry games don't always play out that easily either. So,
yeah, and Lance, they've played a couple games on their schedule. You know, there's a reason their power rankings. I think they are 4-1, and North Shore is 1-4, and they are next to each other in the power rankings. So, stat-wise, there's been a couple games that they've just run the ball early and gotten ahead and just kind of coasted through it. So they haven't really had to do a whole lot with Matthew. I'll say this. I have to give him props. I coached him when he was 7 years old in baseball, and he was the best first baseman as a 7-year-old I've ever seen in my life. I never envisioned him as a quarterback in high school, but he's done a tremendous job. He's a great family, great kid, and he's only a junior. You know, when you look up and down the North Shore stat leaders, look at the quarterbacks and their years, outside of Jacob Crane, everyone else is a junior or a freshman.
Well,
yeah, what I really do like about this Covington team is the defensive line. Right, you had mentioned a few of the guys, but Tremarcus Scott, I got to watch some of his tape. Nichols guy, he's vicious. Outside linebacker type, but really an impressive guy. Max guy, like you mentioned, and Ardron Jackson, Peyton Taylor, like the list goes on and on. They've got guys all over the field on defense. I think that's what makes this team so scary. So when you're talking about a freshman quarterback playing, that's a really big defensive front to kind of take on. And how is he going to respond with pressure in his face? You don't know. He's a freshman. So I think that's going to be really interesting. I mean, but to Calora's credit, his first game is on the road against Madison Prep as a starter. So he's taken on some teams, but I'm really intrigued on how this offensive line of Mandeville kind of holds up against this defensive front of Covington.
Yeah, Jason, I would say that would be my fear if I'm Mandeville. You know, Mandeville doesn't have a huge offensive line. Covington will bring pressure. They have a linebacker, Derek Dunbar. He's a junior. He's in every bit of a mold that you've seen some great Covington linebackers, the Otha Peters and those guys. Like he's sensational. And Tremarcus Scott is right up there with him as a senior. Their secondary is really good. I think it's probably the most talented team on the North Shore, top to bottom. But like I said, it's an identity thing, right? It doesn't matter. You have to figure out who you are and then do what you do really well. And their schedule hasn't helped a lot, like I said, right? Kind of figuring out who they are. But they've got a great coaching staff. They've got a great group of kids. They play special teams well, which goes a long way. They can return kicks, and they've got a really good kicker as well. So they've got kind of the recipe to be there. But now it's district time, and you kind of throw all that other stuff out the window, right?
Yeah, especially when these two get together. So that's definitely going to be a fun one. Any other games on the North Shore, Mike? Before we start hitting some games around the state, but any other games around your neck of the woods that you want to point out?
There's a couple that I'm interested in. You know, I've got to give Chalmette their props. They haven't.
We're about that. We like that. We like that.
I won't say they haven't played well, but I think they're capable of so much more. Like their defense is, they're so good. They have a kid at defensive end, Tim Taylor. You're not going to hear about him, but he's double teamed every play. Like he's 6'5". He's a guy. Obviously, Tyree Aaronsburg, he's one of the best linebackers in the state. He's committed to South Alabama. They've got another linebacker, Hernandez, who does not look anything like Tyree Aaronsburg. He's really good. He's really well. He's so fundamentally sound that he fills gaps so well. He reads guards pulling. He's just always in the right spot, and he's pretty physical. But their secondary is loaded. Like they're really good. I think their biggest issue so far is they lost a running back last year who was a senior that kind of carried the load. they haven't really replaced him. They've had literally five or six guys running it. Breeze Wilson is their quarterback. He's a great athlete, but he can't be their leading rusher week to week, right? And that's kind of been a little bit of the case. They've got a phenomenal receiver in Dana Antoine. I think he's sensational. So we'll see. I mean, Chalmette was a little bit in this space last year, right? Yep. And they lost a game to Ponchatoula, which might have been one of the ugliest losses I've seen. And that's not a knock on them. Like, it was a weird game, right? A really weird game. And now here we are. It's, Ponchatoula 1-4, at Chalmette. Chalmette owes them a little bit, right? So, but they've got to clean up some things. Like, they have to play more fundamentally sound and, get rid of some penalties and some pre-snap stuff and some post-snap stuff. And if they do that, they'll be doing the same thing they did last year. It'll be second, third round of the playoffs, and everybody will be going, oh, what do you mean Chalmette's still in it? It's like, well, go watch them play, right? Like, they've got guys. Two other games that I'm really interested in, maybe three, but, Fontainebleau at Slidell. Let's see how Slidell recovers. I think they're really talented. Jason, I think you mentioned their, quarterbacks, receivers, running back. They lead the area in everything. They're really good on the offensive line. Like, they block and scheme really, really well. The key for them is, can they get stops and can they eliminate the big chunk plays? That's kind of what hurt them, right? They threw a pick six last week against Hammond that I think Ricky was trying to throw the ball out of bounds, and guy picks it off, runs it back, and that was a big play in the game. But they're at the goal line at the end of the game to go tie it up. So kudos to them. North Shore at Salmon, same thing. Like, hey, let's figure out who the Salmon team is. Coach Tudor's got a squad over there, man. Like, their running back Jimmy Chansey, he's great. They've got a young quarterback. I say young, it's his first year starting. He's a junior, but Dejon Howard. Very efficient game against Lakeshore, 12 of 15, 200 yards. They've got some guys on the outside. The biggest thing for them last week is they forced some turnovers, and their secondary played really well, which I'm really proud of those guys. They've improved a little bit each week. Their two losses are at Mandeville, close game at the end, with Ben Hendricks, who ran for over 200 yards in that game, and they lost at East Ascension. They wild. If you want to go to sleep to something, like, go turn on East Ascension. That game late at night, that's what I do. Last night I was telling the coach today. Last night I watched Laranja and St. Helena.
That'll put you to sleep. I talked to Coach Powell about that one. Yeah, that will put you to sleep.
Ooh, yeah. I haven't heard from him. I texted him today, and I haven't heard back. He's not happy. I mean, they won that game, but they could have done some things. And then the other one I would say this week is Pearl River at Hannon. Like, I'm really proud of Coach Soper and the improvement they made as a program as a whole. They could easily be 4-1. They've lost a couple close games, but they're playing a good brand of football. Like, they know who they are. Their defense has played really well. And Pearl River and Coach Leonard, like, they're going to punch you in the mouth, dude. So it's two different styles of teams, but Hannon's proved that they're a different program now. They've got numbers up, and they're doing a lot better. They've got some guys on defense that can play with anybody. And Pearl River's a power team, so they're going to smash mouth run you, and then they've got a quarterback that can get around the corner or throw it up top. So fantastic matchup. And then I'll say this, in District 9 2A, North Lake's got Kenner Discovery this week. Pope John Paul has St. Thomas Aquinas. No predictions there. I'm not going to say anything about those two, but I think that matches up a huge game next week with North Lake Christian at Pope John Paul and Slidell. And look, lastly on the North Shore, I have to give a huge shout out to East St. Tammany and the Slidell area. Like, there's some really good football over there right now.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's been dormant for a little bit, and those guys kind of all at the same time start to kind of ratchet it up a little bit. I don't know if the splitting the district helped. I don't know, but there is. I agree. There's some, even with Pope down there, that there's some good football starting to be played. But yeah, I'll touch on Coach Soper and the Hawks before we move off the North Shore. But no, he's done a tremendous job. I'll use we've played really well lately. Yeah, easily could be 4-1. I mean, you sit there and you look at it and you can slice it all kind of different ways, but had a chance to win really every game. The Ascension game kind of got away from us, but
Yeah,
like to see if they can keep it rolling. But yeah, Pearl River's a different animal because they're going to come downhill. Come right.
And look, that Covenant Christian team, like you're going to see them towards the end, right? Yeah, they're a lower A school, but they're really good. They get a field goal from an 8th grade kicker to go in overtime. Like,
and he drilled it. He drilled it.
That's some.
There was no doubt it was going in.
Covenant's got talent, though. I mean, they're a smaller program, but they definitely have some talent with them too.
Yeah, and look, you can head to Thibodeau and watch them. At Nicholls State, play a pretty good brand of football. And that was a team last year that beat Hannon pretty good. Hannon had some turnovers in that game, but they beat him pretty good last year. So you see that improvement. And like I said, it's hard at a school like Hannon. They're in 4A, and I think it's one of the best districts in the state. For sure.
No, it's definitely tough, and the brand of football that's played in that district as well. The physicality is definitely top notch. Well, man, this was awesome. We are, dude. If you want to stay for the next 30 minutes, you're more than welcome. You want to?
Man, look, I'm a high school football junkie, so you don't have to ask me twice.
He's in it.
All right, we're in. We're in. Well, let's do it. Let's do it. We're gonna go. Let's go out to Lafayette. Lafayette Renaissance at LCA. LCA is a team. I think we've mentioned their name and talked about them every single show we've done, both for their schedule and the way they played that schedule. They're 4-1. Lafayette Renaissance is 4-0. These two met last year. LCA won 34-19. A little history with these two. The schools are literally right across the street from each other. The LCA staff, previously Coach Hunter Landry, Coach Trev Falk, literally just moved across the street. They're coaching at Lafayette Renaissance. This game is going to be, if nothing else, entertaining. LCA had the one anomaly against Shaw. Outside of that, they've been maybe the most impressive team in the state. So we'll see what happens on Friday in Lafayette.
I think
look, Cass, I'll say this: like, it's going to be hard for LCA to throw 5 interceptions again. Like that. Yeah,
it was 6.
You talk about six. So you talk about anomalies. Like that's Jamie Howard of the '90s, crazy. Right? So that's wild. And the Trev Falk thing, there was a lot that went into that, and I'm sure a lot of untold stories there. But that's a fantastic matchup. And kudos to LCA. I mean, they played everybody. Right?
Everybody.
Yeah, I mean, I was just going to say we talked about LCA every week for a reason, because every week they played a great team, and it was like another great matchup every single time. It was interesting because they're playing a bigger school. And so, I mean, that just leads me to believe that LCA is way more battle-tested for this game, similar to the way we talked about St. Paul's just earlier. But, Lafayette Renaissance, they also have a great quarterback, led the district in passing, Kenan Brown, a junior. So they also have a great quarterback too. So, with that said, it is important that Braylon Walker and these guys don't catch the turnover bug again.
Yeah. I think also when you look at a guy like Ballard in the backfield, Caden Ballard, running back for LCA, he's really been toting the rock really well. Sophomore, really impressive. On the other side of the ball, man, you mentioned really good quarterback at Lafayette Renaissance, but also you got Ja'Cory Duhon, who's been really impressive playmaker, over 800 yards on the season. Zion Baptiste is a guy who I believe transferred in this offseason, super athletic guy on the opposite side of the football for Lafayette Renaissance. They only give up 8 points a game, and we're about to test really early on in this game against LCA if that number is going to hold. I think they're going to give up more than 8 points just because of the amount of talent, but I'm just interested to see, when you have a team that has played the gauntlet of schedule that LCA has. I would put it up similar to a Hammond. We talk about Hammond St. Paul's. I kind of put it in that same vein of a team that's kind of played everybody and a team that's played some challenging games, but not nearly the schedule. And I will say a key thing to keep in mind, LCA has a ton of injuries in the secondary. They lost Sky Ryan for the year, who's a really impressive younger player, cornerback. They lost 2 guys out for the year. One guy was out over the past week against Central. I'm not sure if he's back, but that's going to be interesting because that is the strength of Renaissance as well. So fascinating matchup. I'm really interested to see how this one turns out.
Yeah, there's definitely going to be some fireworks over there.
Yeah, Mason, we talked about, Lance brought up injuries. Injuries at smaller schools are way bigger, right? Like there's not too deep everywhere. And some of those guys are going two ways. So sometimes when you lose a player, you lose three. You lose offense, defense, especially somewhere.
Yep, no doubt. That's a good point. Elsewhere in the state, we'll say in the western half of the state, two teams that we haven't spoken of, honestly, until this point, but two teams that were in the semifinals last year. We have Iowa at Leesville. Before we dig into the game, best mascot in the state, Leesville Wampus Cats. Are we there?
It's up there. We had that discussion last week.
Yeah,
Lance, just for you. Look,
Lance isn't sold.
I'm wearing my baby blue. It's very light baby blue.
Oh, now we're back on.
You look like giving up a lot of points today.
I'm soft today, I guess.
Soft podcaster.
And look,
show.
Every time I think of Leesville, I think of these big running backs that are just awesome, right? Their quarterback last week went off.
Troll Brown.
Yeah, he threw 407 yards.
He set the record. He set the record.
School record.
Yeah.
Now look, I don't know what the school record was at Leesville because they've got running backs that set state records, right? So, but that's impressive. I mean, a record at this point in 2025, that's a lot of history, right?
Yeah, no doubt. Well, you're right. Leesville produces running backs like nobody's business. I think this game, just looking at the numbers, Leesville's defense gives up 37 points a game. If Iowa scores 37 points, I don't know if Leesville can win. I mean, it's just Leesville's 1-4. Iowa's undefeated, playing really, really well. They got a Houston commit, Jeremiah Bushnell at receiver. Like, this Iowa offense is pretty explosive. I think that's going to be the story of the game.
Well, Javian Adams might be one of the best running backs in the state.
Yep.
He's 5'7", 165, a smaller guy, but really shifty, really fun to watch. He's going to be the key on Iowa's offense. And the other side of the ball, you're talking about Braun, but I mean, he's got to throw to somebody. Michael Davis has been their guy. He's been their deep play threat. So watching those two connect, one of the most dangerous quarterback wide receiver duos in the entire state. But I'm interested to see how this one goes down because, when you get down to district, it's going to be a little bit different. Leesville lost a really tough one to Benton a few weeks back, but Benton plays is in that 1-5A district, guys, our favorite. All that offense. And look, they got Malachi Ziegler on that team, one of the best, probably the number 3 quarterback in the state if you're going by official rankings.
Yeah.
He's incredible.
Yeah,
he's incredible. And, they led a massive comeback against Leesville in the second half. So how do they respond after that type of game? That's going to be the real question.
Yeah, I was just going to say exactly that, Jason. I think Leesville has played a tougher schedule, so for that reason, I wouldn't just completely count those guys out. But it's always fun when you get kind of towards this time of the year and you have teams that just all of a sudden Iowa 5-0. And, I think me and Cass kind of slept on them last year during the playoffs. They kept winning every week, and all of a sudden they're in the semis. Apparently we slept on them again this year so far because they're 5-0. We haven't talked about them yet. But yeah, I mean, it's always just fun kind of as, the dust starts to settle a little bit, heading, down the stretch here and who's kind of separating themselves from the pack. Iowa, it seems like this is their opportunity to be one of the few 6-0 teams in Louisiana.
Yeah, especially down here. It's like you don't hear about those guys a whole lot. And, you look at the playoff bracket last year at Thanksgiving and they're still playing. Like, holy cow, look at it. Also, pretty good baseball program, too, in Iowa. They play some good baseball.
What's their mascot?
The Yellow Jackets.
Not the same.
Standard.
It's not a Wampus Cat. Sorry, Iowa. If you're going by mascot, Wampus Cats win. So we'll see how it plays out on the field, though.
And they're not the Iowa Hawkeyes to really throw.
Not the Hawkeyes,
Thank goodness, right?
Do that 5 times in a row. See if you get it right.
Missed a golden opportunity. Speaking of mascots, Jason, the Comets of St. Charles Catholic, your alma mater, they go to Terrebonne, a battle of 2 4-1 teams.
This is one of my favorites.
Yeah. No, this game here is Terrebonne coming off of their first loss last week to Destrehan. St. Charles returning a lot of guys from last year's team that struggled. These two played last year, and it was one of the bright spots for St. Charles. The week after Terrebonne beats Destrehan last year, St. Charles, who struggled most of the year, goes and beats them. Well, they played them at home. Beats Terrebonne 25-19. The rematch this year at Thibodaux. This Terrebonne running game, like we talked last week, against this Coach Wayne Stein defense. Really, really good matchup down in Terrebonne.
Here's the big key to this game. When you go back and look at St. James last week, the problem that St. Charles faced is they had to go 3-man front because there were so many athletes on St. James. They had to sacrifice a 3-man front, spread out, cover those receivers. And we're going to talk about them in a bit, but Kanye Zenon and Jakias, Villanova really are incredible athletes. They were forced to go cover those guys. So really when the comeback came in was when they were able to have 3 down linemen. They said, we're just going to run right at you. We're going to take what we can get. I don't know if Terrebonne is going to have that same opportunity or advantage. Quincy Adams has been their guy. Their offensive line has been their strength. They've got 3 Division I commits. St. Charles is going to load the box, and they're going to challenge them and say, look, if you want to beat us, you're going to have to pass the football. And that's what this game is going to come down to. Marix and Monica have done a great job in the box. St. Charles has an older secondary with experience, and that's going to be the matchup. It can Terrebonne. St. Charles is going to try to take away what you do best, and they're going to run the football. So I'll be really fascinated to see how this game plays out. But don't just look at what Terrebonne has done and assume they're going to score a bunch of points. We know the St. Charles defense plays tough no matter who they play.
I think it comes down to Terrebonne playing just a clean football game. Last week, they turned it over 5 times versus Destrehan, lose by 14. If they can control the line of scrimmage, which they likely will because they have one of the best offensive lines in Louisiana, big commits. They just look big on film. Their running back's big. Quincy Adams, like you mentioned, feels like if they can not put the ball on the ground and win the battle up front, this feels like a game that Terrebonne could win at home. But as Jason said, we also know how this St. Charles program, they just know how to win. If this game's close in the end, somehow St. Charles Catholic probably finds a way to win because that's just what Coach Stein and those guys do down there.
Yeah, and look, that's a culture thing, right? Like it was the same when Coach Monica was there. Like those guys, we talk about fundamentally sound football. They don't miss assignments. Like they play what they're supposed to play. They always game plan really well. St. Charles could easily be undefeated right now. You know, that play at the end of that game last week was, defensive back almost couldn't play that better. He stays in the back hip, turns at the right time, gets his hand up when the receiver's hands go up. So that was a big one. Terrebonne, I got to watch that Terrebonne Destrehan game, and they're really talented. You guys brought up the offensive line. Bingham's a big kid. He's heading Louisiana Tech. His brother's actually at Nichols on the defensive line. Really talented group of kids. And I think that program is still on the uptick. I don't think this is a peak for them. Like they've continued to build this year after year after year. And it's not like it's just a big senior class that's really good. Like they're really building the program there. So I'm happy for that whole area. As a River Parish guy, this is a great matchup that I'm really excited about.
Yeah, no doubt. Stay on the River Parish is just a little bit. We got St. James going to Shaw. St. James, you mentioned, Mike, the win last week over St. Charles with the last play of the game, facing a Shaw team that 2 losses. They've been shut out by Edna Carr, who hasn't been shut out by Edna Carr.
Join the club.
Right. Join everybody else. And then Rummel, who's obviously another very quality football team. Shaw got a big win last week over De La Salle. It seems like Shaw, they also beat LCA. They're kind of to start to get their feet under them, kind of get back into it. Those guys are going to be coached up with Coach Hank, and obviously our guy, Coach Giglio, coaching that defense. He's going to have his hands full this week with the St. James offense. Shaw won the game last year, 35-14. They meet again this week on the West Bank.
I like Shaw here at home because we've seen what they did to a similar offense just a couple weeks ago. I'm very confident in Coach Giglio's ability to shut down these, spread it out, high-flying offenses. They find ways to create turnovers. I think this could be a similar outcome to maybe not 7 turnovers, but a similar outcome to what we saw with Shaw and LCA. And again, like you mentioned, these guys have seen the best. So St. James, I know they're very talented, but man, Shaw has seen the best with their previous schedule.
Yeah, I know. Look, Shaw, they've kind of meshed, right? They've kind of find themselves at the right place at the right time. Defense, Ethan Lentz at linebacker. He had 2 picks against LCA in that game. Their team is kind of finding themselves. But again, I'm not counting out the Wildcats. I got to watch them live. Defensively, Nolan Zenon, who was a district MVP All-State player, all over the field. DeMonte Lamar, not a guy you're hearing a lot about, but 6'4", plays really big. They have some talent, and there's no doubt when you're talking St. James, the athletes on the perimeter are unreal. And I know, as you mentioned, they faced it in LCA, but LCA also had turned the ball over. Was it 7 total times and 6 interceptions?
Yeah.
7 total, 6 interceptions. I'm not saying – I just don't see this St. James offense doing that. I know you have, again, Jackson at quarterback, who's really talented. You got Zenon at receiver, Kanye Zenon, who was all over the field. Ja'Kai's Villanova. I'm not saying definitively St. James is going to go on the road and win, but I think this is going to be a heck of a ball game. And St. James is going to find out, just how good they are in this matchup against Shaw on the road, which is going to be a huge game for them.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about, Lance brought up St. Paul's and that schedule, that early schedule. At one point, I think it was week 3 or week 4, I'm thinking, Hank, what are you doing, man? Who is like, are you out of your mind? Like, it was wild, right? And
they had St. Aug in a jamboree too.
Yeah. That's career suicide if you're anybody else. Hank's a legend for a reason. He knows what he's doing, and you can see those guys start to play better and better and better every week. And it's happening. But these are two really battle-tested teams. St. James coming off, a Terrebonne game, a St. Charles game. They've played some people. So this is two heavyweights going at it that are experienced. They've got, really, really good coaches and really good schemes and players. Every time I hear a Xenon at St. James, I go, here we go again. There's another great one,
Yeah, they definitely turn out some talented skill guys down there at St. James, but that'll be and Shaw, I think this is year 3 or 4, their stadium on campus. They've kind of made that a pretty good home atmosphere. So that'll be a fun night down on the West Bank of New Orleans. All the way up in Monroe, we've got Alexandria going to West Monroe. Talk about a heavyweight matchup. These two in last year's meeting, Ash won 45-35. Ash is undefeated. Look, this is a really good football team. But outside of them playing Destrehan, schedule's kind of been light up to this point. Mm-hmm. West Monroe kind of the opposite. They've got a loss to North DeSoto. They've beaten Catholic. This program has kind of solidified some consistency, at least through the first 5 weeks of the season under Coach Dizer. This is the game where West Monroe can win, and you can say, okay, West Monroe's back. They're hosting Ash. Ash makes their run to the Superdome last year. The program under Coach Bachman's been really good. This feels like an opportunity, even though West Monroe's done a lot up to this point, but to kind of say, hey, this district still runs through us.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like one thing we certainly know about Ash is that they want to play a high-scoring football game. Yeah. They want to score 40-plus points, right? And I look at West Monroe. They have a big bruising running back, Christian Ponte, 5'10", 220, ULM offered.
He looks like a Tommy Banks light.
Go ahead.
He looks like a Tommy Banks light.
He's like, I think he's a power lifter as well. He's a big strong kid.
Yeah.
And so I feel like that he's their opportunity of West Monroe to control the game a little bit, right? Like if you can keep this game in the 20s, you got to think that's the type of game that West Monroe wants to play. And so I'm intrigued to see just how many carries like Christian Ponte gets, and if he's the way that Coach Dizer really controls this game, and you would have to think that's their easiest path to victory.
I mean, look, but you also got Kedrian McNeil, who I watched some tape on, man. He's lightning quick. He makes full speed cuts. Beautiful jump cut. Had a kickoff return back for a touchdown a few weeks ago. Also, their receivers are really solid. I mean, Giat does a good job getting these guys the ball. You got Trez Davis, who I'd argue is my favorite argument, guys. He's in that top 5, top 10 conversation of best receivers in the state. Tulane commit, really impressive guy. You also got Jordan Coleman, guy who transferred in from North Carolina, really looked impressive. Their defense a bit underrated, though, guys. Smoltz Lilly, Maddox Cobb, Brody Thurman, some guys I watched some tape on. Really impressive, but so is Ash's defense, man. A guy, Bryson Phoenix, transferred out from Pineville this past season, has really been making headway, looked impressive. Jaden Bayonne has really been a big guy. So we talk about all these offenses, but, man, I really like the defense in this matchup too. I don't know which way it's going to go. I just really expect a solid 48 minutes of football.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, look, I'll say this. I think no matter what happens in this game, West Monroe's back, right? I think they've proven to be a really talented team. What I've been really impressed, I got to watch the entire Ash Destrehan game. What I'm more impressed with them about is they're a program now, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're not a player. I think everyone saw them last year and they had a great running back and they did that a lot. When you can lose a player like that at a position like running back and just get more dynamic on offense, it's absolutely wild. And they've done such a good job. I do some stuff for those 446 guys, and they're big on Ash, and they're in that area. But if I was in North Louisiana, I can promise you I'd be at West Monroe at about 3:00 on Friday.
Yeah, it feels like that atmosphere is going to be rocking like it is in the the mid to late 90s.
Yeah, the good news is you probably got 20,000 places to sit, so that's
right. Plenty of places to sit and plenty of people to sit in those seats.
And look, if you can't get in, just stay on the outside and watch that Jumbotron. You can catch a whole game on that too.
That place is unbelievable. Also up in the northern part of the state, also in District 25A, Ouachita Parish travels to Ruston. Ruston making an appearance playing a team in state for the first time since week 1. Welcome back to Louisiana, Ruston. But man, we know what Ruston is and what they're capable of. They dropped a game to Stephenville last week in Texas, that was a tough opponent. After that stretch they played, you can almost kind of excuse that. But this Ouachita team, the stats are eye-popping. Like it is unbelievable. They're outscoring their opponents 210-67. They haven't turned the ball over this year. Their quarterback, Montrell Connor, has completed 35 passes and has 15 touchdown passes. That's crazy. He's also rushed for 7 touchdowns. I think that my favorite one, though, was there's 10 receivers with a catch. None of their receivers have more than 9 catches, and 6 of them have at least a touchdown. So
that might be one of the craziest stat lines.
It's crazy. I had to look at it like 3 different times. I was like, there's no way this is right. But it is. And if you go and you look at what they've done, week 1 they played Captain Shreve. Captain Shreve haven't scored less than 40 points except against Ouachita. Ouachita held them 19. And Captain Shreve plays in.
They have one of the best running back wide receiver combos in the entire state.
This Ouachita Parish team, man, this is talk about a chance to make a statement. Go to Ruston and win, and that's a statement made.
You pretty much summed up everything I was going to say right there. I mean, it looks like this Ouachita team, they play great defense, and they're extremely efficient on offense. They don't turn it over, and they score touchdowns in not a lot of snaps apparently. And so it's pretty crazy. I don't know. I'm confused on how we just haven't even seen anything from them this year. Like they popped up out of nowhere at 5-0, and I mean Ruston. It's hard to really. Obviously, we know Ruston's good, but it's hard to know how good they are because they haven't played anybody from Louisiana. So how can we really
can't compare to anything?
How good they are. So it's hard to tell.
To be fair, Ouachita Parish was on the slate for recaps. We just didn't get to them. They beat a really good Franklin Parish team. Somebody put it on the lineup. I'm just gonna say,
Jason's a big Franklin Parish guy. Too.
Yeah, big Franklin Parish.
Look, Franklin Parish has a ton of athletes.
They got a couple guys there. There's no doubt about that.
Look, man, they're in that conversation with North DeSoto. I think that they're a really good football team. Ouachita Parish, I watched a lot of the game against Sterlington. Not their cleanest game. 2 pick sixes in that one to kind of cap it off, including one with 1 second left on the clock to kind of put the nail on the head. I really think this Ouachita Parish team, a lot of people say they have the talent, but can they put it together? And this is going to be their biggest test, right? Going up against Ahmad Hudson, Dalen Powell in that backfield. I really am fascinated to see how this team matches up against Ruston.
Ahmad Hudson is 6'7", 235 wide receiver that's going to play tight end. Apparently, that sounds.
By the way, he's the number
basketball
one
guy.
Number one, number 1 tight end in the country, and he's a top 150 basketball player in the country. He has offers to Bama and Auburn to play both sports.
Well, look, if you want him for football, you better offer him in basketball. You're not going to get him, right? It's kind of trade as green all over again. If you want him, you better offer both, and they can do it, right? The days of Ronald Curry doing it both ways, you don't see that much anymore. It's kind of difficult, but he's he's different. Like he's in fact, I wouldn't be surprised if he gained 40 pounds and ended up playing, a little bit Dylan Gordon from Curtis a few years back, right? Big tight end that can kind of add some weight and move the tackle and be a first-round draft pick.
Yeah, he's impressive. That's going to be a. You're right, Lance. I don't know how we just missed Washita Parish, and they've beaten Franklin Parish last week. They beat Sterlington. Obviously, they did what they did to Captain Shreve. So, and this is a team in Washita Parish. Last year, they went 6-5. They lost to Destrehan in the second round of the playoffs. So that district they play in, it's so tough. They get a postseason win last year. So interesting to see if they can go over to Ruston and kind of welcome Ruston back to the state with a win. We'll jump around the state here for a few other ones. I'll start staying in the north part of the state in Jason's favorite district, 1-5A, Airline and Parkway. I don't know how many points are going to be scored in this one, but I think it's going to be more than 100, right? We got to go more than 100.
Yeah, over under is 100.
All of them. I mean, Airline's averaging 49 a game. Parkway's averaging 57.2 points per game. If you play in District 1-5A, you've got to be able to score points. I don't know if you have to play defense, but you got to be able to score. These two teams do it.
And look, I think we talked a lot about some of these other teams, but Parkway kind of fallen below our radar just because of the other games on the slate. Caleb Boyd's done incredible at quarterback, but like I've said it before, they got three guys that can play quarterback. They got a freshman as well who's really been looking good. Mark Copenhaver, who's a linebacker, does an exceptional job. Also a really good return man for them. That's on top of their 6'4" receiver, Garrett Brunny, who's a junior. And then you got Antonio Gladney, who's getting some looks as well. They have talent all over the field. They probably got 4 or 5 guys that are really deep play threats. And you know about Airline. So I'm really fascinated to see this one play out.
Yeah, I don't know how Airline does it. Like every year, it's just another quarterback, another set of receivers, and just slinging it all over the place.
Yeah, it's insane. How about Thibodaux at Hahnville? And speaking of teams flying under the radar, Hahnville comes in at 4-1. Thibodaux's undefeated, 5-0, 2-0 in district. This Hahnville defense, 7.8 points per game given up. Their schedule hasn't been the toughest, but they've blown people out all year long. Coming in against Hahnville, again, Hahnville kind of, ran that district for a while, kind of fell off here the last couple of years, but this is a big matchup for Hahnville to get back into the district race and for Thibodaux to kind of separate themselves.
Yeah, I thought Hahnville had an impressive win early in the year. They blew out E.D. White after E.D. White went
28-7. That's right.
Yep. And then Hahnville had a big win over them. And so I think this – and then they had the one weird loss. I mean, I don't know. It'd be interesting to see if there was any injuries or they lost terrible and pretty bad, I think, right?
52-38.
So,
I
was a little surprised by that. Yeah, I was a little surprised by that one because that was right after they only gave up 7 to E.D. White. And so it didn't really match up. So, I think if anything, we just continue to learn more about this Hahnville team. That Hahnville-Destrehan game, it's always great when that's a good game. So I'm hoping to see this Hahnville team, stay on track and, contend with Destrehan down the line.
I'll say this as a Destrehan guy. It's funny how you hate Hahnville your entire high school career, and then you get out and you're all family, and now we just root for each other, right? But
that's us and Chalmette down here.
Yeah,
that's exactly us.
That's right.
I hated Chalmette.
But I'll say this. I think Hahnville, kind of like Franklinton, and Coach Salt was there, right, is a sleeping giant. I just think the number of kids, the type of kids, if you get the right coach in that spot, they're sensational. And look, I've had my fair share of battles against Thibodaux as well. It's two really talented teams, and I'll say it till I'm dead and buried. But River Parish football is different, right? And this is a great matchup. There's going to be a big crowd at Hahnville, and that place deserves this game. To have a stage that's set like this, and regardless of how Hahnville does in this game or Thibodaux, I think it's pretty neat to have both these programs kind of getting back. Thibodaux's gone through some coaches, right?
Mhm.
Like, I don't know if it's 4 and 3 years, or 3 and 4 years,
That
something
sounds
like that.
right. Yeah.
But it's been a turnstile. It's neat to see that program have the success they have and get to be on a big stage in a game at Hahnville. Anytime you're at Hahnville or Destrehan, it's a big game.
Yep. One more out in Lafayette. Karen Crow at Lafayette High. Karen Crow's 3-2. Lafayette High, surprising 4-1. Coach Stephen Herron going back to his alma mater. This is a Lafayette team that only won 5 games last year. Goes through a coaching change. Coach Stephen Herron has them 4-1. Big win last week in district to beat Sam Houston. Their only loss is to Southside. Karen Crow 3-2. Weeks 2 and 3 to had back-to-back losses to 2 teams that you're not ashamed to lose to, and Lafayette Christian and Zachary, just two pretty good football teams. And this is Karen Crow, really good program. Lafayette High trying to climb back up out of speaking of teams going through coaches, Lafayette High has gone through quite a few recently. So hopefully Coach Stephen Herron left Ascension Episcopal, go back to his alma mater, and kind of. It's good to see him doing well with that Lafayette Lion program. I just Karen Crow just may be too much for this Lion program right now.
Yeah, Karen Crow's another team we talk about literally every week, it feels like, because every week they've had a big matchup since week 1. So it's another one that just feels like they're probably more battle tested. The little I know about both of those programs, I would think that Karen Crow would be able to come out on top there.
Look, I'll say this. I'm going to tee Jason up on this one. I know how much he likes recruiting and follows these guys. But
Sonia?
Oh my goodness. When you break Kevin Falk's all-time point scored record, like you're a guy. Doesn't matter how that happens. So he's exceptional to watch.
Yeah, he's a heck of a player. But I know Lafayette has a quarterback as well, and Rich Saunier. And Sonia is a really impressive guy as well. I think he's a main part of that offense. But to your point, Karen Crow, man, they really got a heck of a player in is Babineau. Chance Babineau, right?
Chance Babineau.
Just everywhere. He could touch the ball if he wanted to. He could return it. He's really an impressive player. And yeah, I think it's gonna be a fun one to watch, just because Lafayette. Again, we talk about Hammond kind of being in a similar situation. Lafayette was like 3-2 coming into this game last year. So it's kind of that tipping point one way or another. And I think it's a big test for Lafayette.
Yep. Any others that y'all want to fire off?
You already know me. I got 2.
I know you're ready to go.
I got 2. Look. Hamilton Christian.
That's what I'm talking about.
Look, you know, like he's 1A, dude. Listen, one of the guys in the state that a lot goes very unnoticed. Javon Vital, quarterback, running back, paint your fence, cut your grass. He's everything guy at Hamilton Christian. Has really looked impressive. This Grand Lake defense only gives up 16 points a game, so it'll be interesting to see how this game plays out. But this is obviously going to be Grand Lake's biggest test. And Hamilton has a ton of offense. Mangum taking on Faraday, 4-1 Mangum. The Dragons going to Faraday.
That's a good one. That's
another one. It's only.
I hope they have good.
The Ritter Dragons. So the Ritter also are the Dragons. So it's not only one, but it's still up there. Look, Willie Randolph at running back for Mangum. He's had a really impressive game earlier this season against Gina. Faraday has commit at receiver, Desmond Jefferson, who go watch his tape, had like 1,200 yards last year. Really impressive player. But again, matchup is 44.2 points offensively for Mangum, only 11 points yielded for Faraday. So I think that'll be a fun one to watch.
Kind of disappointed. Lance, what are the colors of Mangum? The Mangum Dragons.
Purple and gold. Am I wrong?
Did you know that?
I thought it was. Yeah. When we played at St. Mary's, there was a chance that we played them in the playoffs. So I started watching film on Mangum. We then got upset in the first round.
You're colorblind.
Long story. We're not going to take it there. But yeah, I knew they were purple and gold.
I'm disappointed. I thought they'd be green and yellow.
Green and yellow, green and white.
Yeah. Green and something. How are the Dragons in purple?
Yeah.
They might have changed their mascot. I mean, maybe they were the.
No. They're still the Mangum Dragons. I promise you.
Maybe there was something different before. No, but maybe
they're the purple and gold Dragons now.
Maybe they used to be the Tigers. So
And look,
Where's
Cass,
Grand Lake? How about that? Where's Grand Lake? That's a better question.
I don't know. I think they're the Hornets, too. I think it's the
No,
Grand Lake
where?
Hornets.
Where is Grand Lake?
Grand Lake is out. It's towards Lake
west,
Charles.
right? Yeah, it's
Yeah.
west. Said the only reason I know is because I've been looking at this stuff, man. I can kind of piece it together by district. I don't know. I couldn't. Man, I got to pull up GPS to get around Metairie. All right, I can't tell you. I can't tell you where half these places are. That ain't my job. My job is to talk football. That I can do.
well, and look,
Grand
Cass,
Lake is past Lake Charles.
There you go.
Cass, I'll say this. I don't know how the Catholic League does it, right? Like, it's every week now. It's district
it's crazy.
play. I was telling somebody 2 weeks ago, somebody's going to finish 4th or 5th in that district and might win a state championship. Like, it just it doesn't even make sense, right?
The fact that Warren Easton could be the 6th or 7th place team in that district is
look. They had a shot against Curtis.
Well, Curtis proved it last year, and we talked about this before. Cass and Lance and I, on different occasions, we called games in the playoffs together. But, it truly depends in that bracket. Where do you fall? What are their matchups? And I know we can say, like, that can be said for any of them, but I don't think it's a little bit different in Division I Select. And when you look at the Catholic League, I mean, Brother Martin, what was it, a few years ago? I think they finished middle of the pack, if I'm not mistaken, and they made it to the state title game. And I mean, again, it's not like a shocking, like, how did they do it? It's an expectation. Like, all right, so one of the Catholic League teams are going to make it, and then who else is going to be in it? And it's just kind of the way it is at this moment.
Yeah, you look
Curtis
a few years ago.
Curtis went to the semis last year after going 4-6. So and nobody was surprised. Like, it was, why they went 4-6. They played in a crazy schedule.
Yeah. Yeah, and Jesuit makes state championship appearance a few years ago against Catholic. Carr, we always talk it's the Carr side of the bracket and the Catholic side of the bracket, right? In that select Division I select. But I was really impressed with Warren Easton, watching them against Slidell, and then seeing some film on them against John Curtis. Rummel's young running back has been sensational. I think he ran for 200 something yards on like 16 carries or 13 carries, something like that last week in that big win against Brother Martin. I'll tell you, I think even more impressive was that Rummel kind of held Easton Royal. I don't know. He probably still had 100 yards receiving, but
he got loose one time.
Yeah, he got loose one time, but he's dynamic. I mean, he's everything.
The fact that people still kick the football his direction blows my mind.
No, I would punt it out of bounds 10. I might go for it on 4th down.
Go for it.
Just to give them the ball right there in the event that they get it anyway.
That's what I'm talking about. I would just go for it.
Oh, yeah. But no, there's some fascinating matchups. I'm really excited about district play now because it's kind of that different feel. And I'll say this. I don't have to wake up and do 18 scores on Saturday morning or Friday night. We have like 9 or 10. Life's
much easier.
Life's a little easier for me, but at the same time, for me, I've gained a lot of friendships through this with the coaches. So I kind of hate that part because it's 500 ball from here on out for me. Somebody wins and somebody loses. Right?
That's right. So someone's got to win and someone has got to lose, but it definitely does. And we talked about this, I think maybe in the first show we did this season with the PowerPoints and how the playoffs play out. It kind of minimizes what districts mean, and it's districts are kind of there to fill the schedule essentially. But it still matters. Like, it still does matter. Don't tell anybody at Rummel that winning the Catholic League doesn't matter. Like, that's
I'll tell you what's crazy is you find yourself cheering for your district teams out of district. Yeah. Because you need those guys to go get valuable wins, right? Mm-hmm. So, if you're in, District 7-5A, you're cheering for your 7-5A opponents later in the season to go have big games. That was never the case. Like, you hoped everybody was 0-8 when you played them, Yeah. And now it's like, man, I need you to go give me a win here. So
you got to win some games.
You get something, And then coaches have such a challenge now that didn't exist before, right? The scheduling piece it's wild. It's the wild, wild west. Like, people are canceling right before the season, adding somebody else, adding people from out of state. It's crazy.
Well, look at Ruston having the schedule 4 games. Was it 3? It was 3. If you felt like more, it was 4?
4.
Okay. Well, I mean,
4 straight games out of state.
Yeah, I mean, I know Coach Mock. I talked to him about. He said all the time, I told him this week. He's like, Jason's scheduling was terrible. I had to go to Mississippian scheduled teams. I had to go to Florida scheduled teams because teams wouldn't want to play him. I mean, to be fair, like I understand it. St. Charles was 2A a lot of the time, sometimes on a big year 3A. If you're a 5A school, what do you have to gain from going down and playing St. Charles? So it's demoralizing if your team, or you feel like it's demoralizing if your team loses because that's a lower classification team. But regardless of the level, if you're a team that is a name brand program, it's hard to find games in the state sometimes. And that's why you see teams like North DeSoto scheduling a game from Texas every year, and you have the battle of the I think it's up north in Shreveport. It's like the battle of the border, I think they call it.
Yep.
That big series they've got, which I don't know. It's just crazy how we're kind of seeing that in state, like teams not able to schedule each other.
Yeah, it does. It makes it interesting. That's for sure. Well, Mike, man, we gained some followers on Twitter. This is the most people I think we've had that watch the show. You might just have to be like, it's all you, dude. It's all you. We appreciate it.
Man,
this was fun.
I appreciate it. I appreciate what you guys do covering the entire state. But my goal will always be to prioritize the North Shore. But I hope as this thing grows that we can kind of provide similar coverage around the state. I think it'd be really neat to see somebody put together rushing leaders from around the state, right? Passing leaders around the state, records that you can look at. I just think the kids deserve it, the coaches deserve it, the communities deserve it. So I think we're well on our way there. It takes guys like you guys to care about the entire state, right? Like we're all Southeast Louisiana guys, and we truly love the state of Louisiana's high school football, and it's you can ask the NFL, second to none.
Yeah, no, it is. It was awesome, and this was a whole lot of fun doing this here tonight with you. So those of you that are watching, man, we appreciate it. We enjoy doing this. We hope you enjoy following along with us to preview Week 6. Go out and follow Northshore Prep Report. You can find them all over Twitter. They do an awesome job, like Mike said, of covering the players and coaches and teams on the North Shore. For us, follow us on Twitter. Yeah, no doubt. I agree.
Regardless of the area, some of the best in the state. I agree. I love y'all work, man. Y'all do an awesome job.
No, awesome stuff. Go follow our Talking Ball Y'all YouTube. Go follow and subscribe there. You can follow us on X. You can find us on VSN, both live and on demand as well.
Hey, look, I have to say this, Cass. You guys on the North Shore, if you don't know, Cass Hargis is the head baseball coach at Denver. So this spring is going to be a fun one. So we're excited. So look, let's try to have a baseball show too, man. I'd love to do that. In fact, we just started getting some rosters and schedules for basketball. So we'll be doing the same coverage for girls and boys basketball here on the North Shore.
I'm in on it, dude. Whatever you need from me, I'm here to help. I'm glad you are doing what you're doing, and personally, I am fired up about the spring. I can't wait. It's going to be a whole lot of fun. A whole lot of fun. So y'all go out. Y'all have a great week. We will see y'all again on Sunday to recap. God, it's already Week 6. To recap Week 6 of Louisiana high school football. For Lance, Jason, and Mike, I am Cash. Y'all have a good night. See y'all Sunday.